This whole session is about leadership in turbulent times. And our next speaker is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Ngozi was the finance minister of Nigeria before she took on the position as the head of the World Trade Organization. And she has for a long time argued that the struggle against poverty, inequality, and hunger goes hand in hand with the struggle against climate change and nature loss. Ngozi, it's a pleasure to have you here with us here at the Norad Conference. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. Happy New Year to all.
Thank you very, very much. So my first question to you, Ngozi, is, and that is going back to your time as the Minister of Finance in Nigeria. And I'm curious if you could share some reflections with us on how you sort of juggle the different priorities with lifting your country out of poverty, securing economic growth, and at the same time securing your country's nature and also preparing your country for the consequences of climate change. So how did you sort of balance those different priorities and challenges in your time as a minister?
Well, thank you very much. I have to, of course, say that I was not the only one to be working on it because we had many members of cabinet and the president. So it was like a team effort. But from my own perspective, I have to say that I didn't see, it was a little bit easy for me because I didn't see those goals in contradiction. So if growing the economy and fighting poverty are one and the same thing to me, and then knowing that climate change and sustainability, if we don't pay attention to that, we are facing an existential threat from climate change. So the issue again was, how do you reduce poverty, and at the same time do so in a way that is sustainable? So I think it was a little bit easier for me because I saw the goals as completely intertwined. Now, getting the whole of cabinet to see that it wasn't as easy because this was before the Paris Agreement in 2015, before it was adopted. So it's easier said than done. So whilst I could see that way, getting all my colleagues around was also a challenge.
Thank you very much, Ngozi. Interesting to hear from you. And moving then to your current position as the director of the World Trade Organization, in what one could say are quite challenging times for global trade, could you share with us how you see sort of the role of global trade within the green shift? And also, if you see some promising developments or trends or just even an example or two that can give some hope and optimism?
Well, thank you so much. I think that's a really important question because most people see trade as part of the problem for climate change, for greenhouse gas emissions, because they always look at the logistics of trade. And when I came to the WTO, knowing, as I said, that we have an existential threat in climate change, the first thing that came to mind is to look at trade as part of the solution. And if you approach it from that way, you will see that there are several ways that trade can and should be part of the solution. That is why a few months ago at COP27, we launched our flagship report on trade and climate. So here are a couple of examples. Our economists looked at renewables and the cost of solar panels and renewable energy in the past 3 decades. And as everyone knows, there's been a huge drop in the unit cost of solar panels, for example, more than 85% drop. And they found that 40% of the decline in the cost of solar panels over the past 2 or 3 decades is attributable to scale economies, which are made possible in part by international trade and value chains. So that is what has helped us to partly achieve this huge drop in costs. So that's one way that trade has contributed. Another is if you reflect on it, if there are places where we have clean energy, and a comparative advantage in producing certain products that are, would lead to a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. Why do you make them where you would generate such emissions? Why not green source them? So we're looking at using this trade of green sourcing. So you can have them made in places where you have lower emissions, you maybe with hydropower and so on, or other types of power, and, ship them to places where, they don't have that comparative advantage. That's another way in which trade can help. Yet another way is looking at how you lower tariffs on climate friendly goods, on renewables. And often, if you look at the tariff structure in many countries, you find something anomalous. You find that tariffs on fossil fuel intensive goods are often lower than tariffs on renewables. So this is by looking at that structure of tariffs and trying to make sure that we are favoring renewables. That is another way that trade policy and trade measures can contribute. And then finally, let me mention on the logistics of trade. I'm very encouraged when I talk to CEOs of shipping companies, they're all looking at what are the alternative fuels that they could use, whether it's green hydrogen or whatever. But the move away from fossil fuels is clear. The same in aviation. It will take some time to get there, but clearly, even on the logistics, there is a move.
Thank you very, very much, Ngozi. Such a pleasure to have you here with us. But next time, why don't you come to Oslo? We would just love to continue our conversation with you.
I would love to be there with you in person, and I'm so sorry I cannot. Let's try for next time.
Ngozi, give her an applause.
Thank you.